He didn't even hear his own name at first. All Malik Lawson knew was that every camera in the Chicago skyline summit had suddenly turned toward him. The broke single dad who wasn't supposed to be anywhere near that stage. People whispered. Security stepped forward. Someone in the crowd laughed under their breath. Why is he here? Who let a contractor into a billionaire event? And right there, under those harsh white lights, a woman he hadn't seen in 8 long years grabbed his wrist, her voice trembling as she leaned in close. Please, just make it fast. She didn't explain. She didn't look him in the eyes. She just said it like her entire world was crumbling, and he was the only person who could keep it from falling apart. Before I tell you what he did next, and why the whole room gasped when he took off his jacket, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Drop it in the comments so I know who's locked in with us tonight. And if you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. Because this story, yeah, you're not ready for what happens next. The moment he stepped forward, everything in that room shifted, and nobody, not even Malik himself, knew the storm he was walking straight into. The room tightened the moment Malik stepped forward. You could feel it, like the air itself pulled back, waiting to see if he would embarrass himself, or someone else. Phones lifted. Record buttons flashed red. Every investor, every tech founder, every polished billionaire watched him like he'd walked into the wrong universe. He didn't belong here. That's what their faces said before any words were spoken. But the woman beside him, her hand still gripping his wrist, she was breathing like someone drowning above water, like she'd been holding herself together for too many years and finally hit the point where she couldn't anymore. Malik didn't say a word. He never did when emotions were high. Silence had always been his armor. She tightened her grip, and then she swayed. Barely. Just enough that he caught her elbow before anyone else noticed. A soft gasp rippled through the room. Not for her, for him touching her. Someone whispered, "Who is he?" Another said, "Security, handle that." But security didn't move. They watched, waiting for her signal. Waiting for something none of us understood yet. She lifted her chin, forcing grace into her posture, even as her knees threatened to buckle. "Walk with me," she murmured. He shouldn't have. He should have let her go handle whatever billionaire disaster she was walking into. But 8 years of silence has a way of hollowing a man out. And hearing her voice again, cracked, unsteady, desperate, it pulled something old and buried right out of him. He stepped beside her. That alone set the room buzzing. Still, nobody expected what happened next. When the spotlight shifted, hitting her face, she froze for half a second. A flicker of fear sharp enough to cut. Malik saw it. And that was when he shrugged off his jacket. Not to warm her, not to shield her, but for something else. Something the crowd reacted to instantly. A wave of murmurs surged. Cameras zoomed. Flashes exploded like lightning. Whatever they saw, it changed the temperature of the entire hall. Gasps, hands covering mouths, people rising from their seats. And then, 8 years earlier, everything was quieter. No cameras, no board members, no billion-dollar rooms filled with polished strangers. Just a humid July afternoon in Bronzeville. The kind where the sun pressed down heavy and kids ran through open fire hydrants like it was a festival. Cars crawled past the old brick buildings, music spilling from open windows, the smell of barbecue drifting through the neighborhood. Malik Lawson was 24 then, broke, tired, and stubbornly hopeful. He spent his Saturdays volunteering at the youth center, fixing whatever needed fixing. Broken ceiling fans, flickering light switches, the ice machine everyone kept kicking. Anything to keep the place open. He liked feeling useful. It was the only time life felt simple. That was the same day a new volunteer walked in, clipboard in hand, sleeveless white blouse, hair tucked neatly behind one ear. She looked like she stepped right out of downtown Chicago and accidentally took a wrong turn into the South Side. Her name back then felt like air. Light, effortless, unforgettable. But that wasn't the first thing he noticed. It was the way she stood just inside the entrance. Like she wasn't sure she had the right to walk in. No confidence yet. No armor. Only curiosity pushing her forward. "Is this where the after-school program meets?" she'd asked. Her voice was soft, careful. He pointed toward the classroom. You with the university group? She nodded. A nervous smile tugged at her lips. I'm here for the internship. Avery something, she tried to say, fumbling the introduction like she hadn't practiced it 100 times. Caldwell, he finished for her. She blinked, startled. He shrugged. You're wearing a name tag. Her hand flew to her chest. She didn't realize it was there. She laughed. Quiet, embarrassed, but real. From that moment, she followed him around the center like she was studying the place through his eyes. She asked questions about everything. Why the kids trusted him. Why he kept fixing things for free. Why he stayed long after closing. Malik didn't know what to make of her. She was too smart, too observant, too out of place to be comfortable, yet somehow not uncomfortable at all. Later that afternoon, when the kids begged him to play basketball with them, he tried to wave them off. He hated being the tallest and slowest on the court. But Avery? She nudged him forward with a grin that was too bold for someone who barely spoke earlier. Go, she said. You look like you need fun more than they do. He played. Terribly. They won anyway. And she watched the whole time. Not with fascination, not with admiration, with something different. Like she was trying to memorize the way he moved, the way he laughed, the way he shook off stress without even knowing it. By the end of the day, she learned 2 things about him. He loved the kids like they were his own, and he carried a sadness he never talked about. By the end of the day, he learned one thing about her. Avery Caldwell wasn't like the world she came from. Not yet. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the cracked playground asphalt. She was packing up when he finally asked, You coming back next week? She hesitated, like she wasn't sure she should. Then she said, Yeah, I think I will. She left the center, sunlight catching her hair, and Malik felt something shift inside him. Quiet, but certain. He didn't know then that this girl would become the one person he couldn't forget. He didn't know she carried a future that would eventually tear them apart. He didn't know she would become the CEO standing beside him 8 years later. He just knew the air felt different after she walked away. And in the silence she left behind, he realized he wanted to see her again. Avery kept coming back to the youth center. One Saturday turned into 2. 2 turned into a month. A month turned into a routine Malik started pretending he didn't look forward to. She learned the kids' names. She helped with homework. She brought snacks. Real ones, not the discount store stuff the center usually scraped together. And every time Malik fixed something, a loose window latch, a flickering hallway light, she stood nearby, watching like she was trying to understand the way he turned a broken thing whole again. By late August, the summer heat finally broke. Evening came sooner. The sky darkened faster, and the center stayed open later than it should have. That was the night everything shifted. The kids were gone. The hallways were quiet. Only 2 people remained. Malik, packing away tools, and Avery, finishing a report for her internship. She was supposed to leave early for a family dinner downtown, but she stayed. Of course she stayed. Are you ever not fixing something? She asked, scribbling on her clipboard. Are you ever not watching me fix something? He shot back. Her head snapped up. He didn't usually tease her. It caught her off guard. But then she smiled. Slow, soft, like she'd been waiting for him to notice her in that way. I watch because you care, she said. People don't care like that anymore. He didn't answer. Not because he didn't want to, but because caring was the one thing that had cost him everything before. Avery didn't know that part. She didn't know he'd lost someone. She didn't know he carried guilt like a second spine. But that night, she got close enough to see it. He climbed the ladder to replace a ceiling bulb, and when the light clicked on, her face was caught in the glow, eyes warm, lips parted slightly, heart racing so loudly he could almost hear it. Malik, she whispered. He froze on the ladder. He knew what was happening. He knew crossing this line would ruin something, her internship, his job, his peace. But then she stepped closer, fingertips brushing the back of his hand as he came down, and everything he'd been holding in cracked. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't planned. It was quiet, slow, inevitable. They kissed in the hallway between the supply closet and the trophy case. Just once. Soft. Careful. Like they were afraid the moment would break if they pushed too hard. But the world doesn't give quiet love room to grow. Not in their lives. A week later, Avery showed up late, eyes red, breathing uneven. She tried to smile, but it shook. He asked her what happened. She didn't answer. She looked down at her phone, at a message she kept trying to hide, and whispered, "My family found out I've been spending time here." He frowned. So? She swallowed hard. "They don't want me here anymore." She didn't explain why. She didn't say who confronted her. She didn't say what they threatened. Malik stepped forward. "Avery." But she stepped back. "I can't lose my internship," she whispered. "Or my position. Or everything they built for me." He didn't know her family was powerful. He didn't know they controlled board positions, political seats, real estate, media connections. He didn't know she lived in a world where one mistake could end a future before it even began. And she didn't know something just as dangerous about him. Someone from his past had resurfaced. A man who had made a promise to return. A man who once threatened Malik's life, and everyone attached to him. And that same man had been seen around the youth center days before. Malik tried to protect her by pulling back. Avery tried to protect him by pushing away. Two people in love, both trying to save the other. Both breaking the one thing they were trying to keep. When she left the youth center that night, she didn't look back. She didn't see Malik watching from the doorway. She didn't see him reach into his pocket and crush the note he planned to give her. She didn't see the shadow in the parking lot watching her leave. The shadow that wasn't Malik. The shadow that would come back later. Avery walked away thinking she ended things for her career. Malik watched her walk away believing she left because she discovered his past. And neither of them knew that the secret tearing them apart had nothing to do with either of them. The world has a way of moving on, even when your heart refuses to. 8 years later, Malik's mornings began long before the sun rose. Southside Chicago didn't care about his past or the wounds he never talked about. It cared about bills, rent, work, and the tiny 8-year-old girl asleep on his couch with her braids messy and one sock missing. Harper Lawson. She was the only part of his life that made sense. Malik had become a single dad before he was ready, before he understood how to be anything for anyone. Harper's mother left when their daughter was barely 3, choosing a fresh start in another state. She didn't send postcards, didn't call, didn't look back. Malik never told Harper the full story. Kids shouldn't carry the weight adults drop. He made her pancakes every morning, even when there was no syrup. He braided her hair the best he could, even though it always came out crooked. He packed her lunch and stuck tiny handwritten notes inside that she pretended to hate but kept under her pillow. He worked 2 jobs, electrician by day, contractor by night, to keep her world steady. They lived in a narrow townhouse that creaked in winter, with a view of the alley and a radiator that wheezed like an old smoker. But Harper loved it. She loved him, and that was enough. This particular morning, she tugged at the sleeve of his work shirt. "Daddy, my science project needs a board. You promised we'd go today." He did. He also had 2 jobs lined up and barely enough gas in the tank. He crouched to her height. "I'll make it happen, Peanut. Don't worry." She nodded with full trust, the kind that crushes you if you let it. Malik walked her to school before heading to his first job site near Hyde Park. It was supposed to be a quick wiring inspection, in and out, except the foreman stepped out holding a letter. "You, Lawson?" Malik nodded. "This came for you," hand-delivered. He didn't recognize the embossed logo, at first sleek silver lettering, corporate stamp, expensive paper, Caldwell Innovations, headquarters, Chicago Loop. His heart thudded once, hard. He hadn't heard that name in years. Inside was a formal request. "Mr. Lawson, your presence is needed at the Chicago Skyline Tech Summit this Friday evening. Urgent. Please confirm." No signature. No explanation. Just a time and address. He didn't want to go. He shouldn't go. But the last words on the letter pulled at him. This concerns your daughter. He read it again. And again. A cold weight settled in his chest. He tried calling the number listed. Disconnected. He tried ignoring it. Impossible. When he picked Harper up from school later that day, she noticed his silence. You okay, Daddy? He forced a smile. I'm fine, Peanut. But he wasn't. Someone had sent that letter deliberately. Someone knew about Harper. Someone knew where he worked. That night, after Harper fell asleep with her nightlight glowing soft yellow, Malik sat alone at the kitchen table. He unfolded the letter again, hands tightening until the paper crinkled. He didn't know who sent it. He didn't know what they wanted. He didn't know how Avery Caldwell's company knew anything about his life. But one thing was certain. He couldn't let anything threaten Harper. Not again. He would attend the summit, even if it meant stepping back into a world he'd spent 8 years avoiding. A world he vowed he'd never let touch his daughter. The Chicago skyline glowed like a crown of glass and steel as twilight settled over the city. Inside the top floor of Caldwell Innovations, Avery Caldwell stood in front of a wall of windows, watching the lake turn dark. She hadn't slept in almost 2 days. Not since the first message arrived. Not since everything she'd built started cracking under her feet. Her assistant, Lydia, hovered near the doorway. They're waiting for you in the boardroom, she whispered. Victor's already there. Of course he was. Victor Langston didn't miss a chance to circle her like a shark smelling blood. Avery smoothed the front of her navy suit, lifted her chin, and walked down the hall, heels sharp against the marble floor. She had spent years becoming the kind of woman who never showed fear. Tonight, the mask felt heavy. When she stepped into the boardroom, the chatter stopped instantly. Every man in the room straightened like they wanted to look loyal, even though half of them were ready to vote her out the moment Victor snapped his fingers. He sat at the far end of the table, hands folded neatly, an expression carved out of smug confidence. Evening, Avery, he said. Smooth, too smooth. She didn't respond. He clicked a remote. A screen behind him lit up with headlines. CEO fails internal audit Caldwell Innovations under investigation. Rumors of unauthorized withdrawals, anonymous insider reveals. Personal entanglements. Avery's stomach tightened, but her face didn't budge. We need to discuss your handling of recent events, Victor said. The investors are concerned. They're concerned because you're feeding them lies, she replied. He smiled. Slow and poisonous. It's only a lie if you can prove it. Her hands curled at her sides. Victor leaned back in his chair. Unless you settle this quietly, Avery, you'll be forced into early resignation. The summit tonight will make everything official. She stiffened. The summit was supposed to announce our next project, not stage a coup. It will announce whatever we decide it will, he replied. The boardmen shifted uncomfortably. No one dared back her publicly. And then her phone buzzed. One new message. No name, unknown number. She opened it under the table. If you want the truth, come to the summit alone. A second message. Do not bring security. Do not bring staff. Do not tell anyone. A third. He will be there. She didn't breathe for a full 3 seconds. He. There was only one person he could be. One person she had buried in the back of her life, back of her heart, back of every future she'd ever imagined. The man she pushed away, the man she hurt, the man she never got to explain anything to. Malik. Her pulse hammered against her ribs. Victor noticed her reaction. What is it? He asked, voice sharp. Nothing, she said. But it wasn't nothing. Someone knew about Malik. Someone was dragging her past into her present. Someone was threatening her future. And someone wanted her desperate enough to show up at the summit without backup. The meeting continued, but Avery didn't hear any of it. All she saw was the last day she walked out of his life. All she heard was the echo of the things she never said. All she felt was the weight of a secret she still carried. A secret the world had no right to uncover. When the meeting adjourned, Victor gave her a thin smile. See you on stage tonight. Don't be late. She walked out without answering. Her heels clicked down the hallway. Fast, faster, almost running. Because if Malik was truly going to be there, then the danger she was facing was bigger than this company. Bigger than Victor's schemes. Bigger than the headlines flooding the news. It was something old. Something unfinished. Something she never healed from. And whatever trap she was walking into tonight, she knew she wouldn't be walking out of it untouched. The Chicago Skyline Tech Summit pulsed with energy long before the doors opened. Drones hovered outside the venue capturing footage for live streams. Black SUVs lined the circular entrance. Inside, the Hyatt's grand ballroom shimmered under ceiling-length chandeliers. Glass, gold, polished marble floors reflecting every flash of every camera. It was a place built for people who controlled the world. People like Avery Caldwell, not people like Malik Lawson. He stepped into the lobby holding the letter in his pocket and a tension in his shoulders he couldn't shake. Harper wasn't with him. He'd left her with the neighbor, Miss Loretta, but she clung to his pant leg before he left, whispering, "Daddy, are you coming back soon?" He told her yes. He hoped he wasn't lying. Inside the ballroom, Malik moved like a man trying to stay invisible. Cap pulled low, jacket zipped, eyes on the floor. Every glittering dress and tailored suit made him feel like a stain on the carpet. But the letter said urgent. The letter mentioned Harper. And that meant he'd walk into hell itself if he had to. He kept to the wall, searching for anyone, anything that made sense. Then he saw her. Avery. Standing near the backstage curtain, posture perfect, voice steady as she spoke to an event tech adjusting her microphone. But her eyes were not steady. They were scanning, searching, fighting something no one else could see. Malik stopped breathing for a moment. 8 years vanished like smoke. She was still beautiful, sharper now, stronger now, but that same faint softness lived in the corners of her mouth, the softness she tried to kill but never fully did. She hadn't seen him yet, and he wasn't sure he wanted her to. He started to turn back toward the exit, when someone brushed past him and muttered under their breath, "Why is maintenance walking around the VIP area?" That stung more than it should have. He kept walking. But fate has a way of dragging two people back into orbit when they've spent years avoiding collision. Avery turned her head at the exact moment Malik stepped into the hallway's light. Her breath hitched. Barely, but enough. Her hand froze mid-air. Her lips parted. Her mask cracked. "Malik." She didn't say it loudly. She didn't need to. He heard it. He felt it. She moved toward him, slow, as if afraid he'd disappear if she moved too fast. He stayed still, muscles locked, trying to swallow the sudden rush in his chest. When she stopped in front of him, there were 100 things she could have said. But she whispered only one. "You came." He didn't answer. She looked down, trying to hide the tremor in her hand as she brushed hair behind her ear. "I didn't know who else to—" She cut herself off as footsteps approached. Victor Langston. He stepped into view with 2 board members flanking him, eyebrows lifting when he saw Malik. "Who is this?" Victor asked. Avery swallowed. "He's a guest." Victor looked Malik up and down, smirk forming. "A guest," he repeated. "Interesting choice." Avery shot him a warning glare, but he ignored it. The event coordinator called out from the stage, "Miss Caldwell, we're ready for your opening remarks." Avery's breath tightened. Panic, subtle but real, flickered across her face. She leaned closer to Malik, too close for Victor not to notice. Her voice trembled. "Please, stay close. Just for tonight." Malik didn't know what she meant, didn't know what she feared, didn't know why she suddenly needed him, but something about the way she said it, the way her eyes held his, put a weight in his chest he hadn't felt since the day she walked away. Before he could respond, Victor stepped between them, smiling like a man who owned the moment. "Come along, Avery. Showtime." She hesitated, only a second, before turning toward the stage. At the last moment, she looked over her shoulder. Fear, regret, hope, all of it flickered in her eyes. and she mouthed the words silently. "Don't leave." Malik didn't move. He couldn't. Because every instinct in his body, every buried feeling he tried to kill for 8 long years, rose up like a warning. Something was about to explode tonight. Something bigger than the two of them. And Malik Lawson was walking straight into the heart of it. The lights dimmed as Avery stepped onto the stage. Hundreds of eyes followed her. Investors, reporters, rivals. People who'd come to witness history. Or a downfall. Camera shutters snapped like frantic insects. Microphones pointed toward her like weapons. She looked calm to everyone watching. But Malik saw the truth in the slight shake of her hand. He stood near the side entrance, half hidden behind a steel pillar, trying to blend into the shadows. He didn't know why she needed him. He didn't know what the summit truly was about. He didn't know who sent that letter with Harper's name on it. But he knew something was wrong. Avery approached the podium, lips parted to speak, and froze. Her eyes weren't on the audience. They were on a small monitor near the front row. Someone had changed the display feed. A headline filled the screen. Avery Caldwell's secret life exposed. Developing story. Whispers surged instantly. People leaned forward. Cameras turned. Victor Langston didn't hide his smile. Avery's breath hitched. Too quiet for the crowd, but loud enough for Malik to feel from across the room. Then, another line appeared beneath the headline. Anonymous source claims child involved. A hush fell so thick you could feel it suck the air out of the room. Avery's knees wobbled. The audience saw it. Victor saw it. Malik saw it. Before security could step in or Victor could fake concern, Avery's heel slipped on the slick marble. She staggered, arms flailing, trying to keep from collapsing in front of 1,000 eyes. Malik moved. He didn't think. He didn't plan. He just moved. He broke from the shadows, cutting through the crowd like a blade. People gasped as he rushed the stage, flashes erupting in rapid-fire bursts. Security reached for him, but Avery lifted a hand, stopping them cold. Malik stepped onto the stage, steadying her by the elbow as the ballroom buzzed with confusion. Someone shouted, "Who is that?" Another, "Is that her boyfriend?" A woman whispered loudly, "He looks like a bodyguard. Why isn't he wearing the uniform?" Avery clutched Malik's wrist like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Please, just make it fast." He didn't know what she meant. He didn't ask. He simply stepped in front of her, shielding her from the flashes, the cameras, the cruelty. And then, in one smooth motion, Malik took off his jacket. The crowd erupted. Gasps, shouts, phones raised higher. Chaos spiraled instantly. Because underneath the jacket, hidden all this time, was an old lanyard resting against his chest. A faded ID badge, the logo barely visible, but the signature on the bottom unmistakable. Avery M. Caldwell. Her handwriting, her authorization, her mark. A badge from a past no one in that room knew existed. Whispers cut through the air. Is that real? How does he have her signature? Was he working for her? Why was it hidden under his jacket? Victor stood frozen, color draining from his face. Avery stared at the badge like it was a ghost. And Malik. He didn't flinch, didn't hide it, didn't look away. He stood before the entire summit, the entire board, every reporter, every billionaire. Uncovered, exposed, undeniable. A man tied to Avery Caldwell in a way no one had imagined. The badge glinted under the lights, and the ballroom erupted with questions as the screen behind them suddenly flickered. Then switched to a live feed of something. Someone. No one expected to see. Gasps rippled through the ballroom as the massive screen behind Avery and Malik glitched. Static, then a flicker of color, then a blurred image trying to force itself into focus. Reporters elbowed each other. Investors stood from their seats. Security hesitated, unsure whether to guard Avery or cut the feed. But Malik didn't move. He stood in front of Avery like a wall, jaw tight, hands steady, eyes locked on the screen as if he already knew what was coming. The image sharpened. A young Avery Caldwell stood in a dim hallway, talking to someone just outside the camera's view. Her voice was softer, her hair shorter, her shoulders less armored. Then Malik appeared on the screen. Not the Malik standing on stage now, but the younger one. Leaner, clean-shaven, wearing a black uniform and a radio clipped to his belt. The room erupted. He used to work for her? Why didn't she disclose this? How long were they connected? Avery's hand flew to her mouth. She hadn't seen this footage since the day it was recorded. The day everything ended. The camera angle widened, revealing the faded logo on Malik's old uniform. Caldwell Innovations, Internal Security Division. Everyone froze. Not a contractor, not a maintenance worker, not a random man on stage. He used to be her security, her father's security, assigned to her, assigned to protect her from threats she didn't even know existed. Malik felt Avery stiffen behind him. 8 years had passed, but the truth hit her like a punch to the ribs. He didn't abandon her. He didn't walk away. He was removed. The screen continued with a timestamp. The night everything fell apart. Avery's voice in the recording trembled. "I don't want him reassigned. He's the only one I trust." Then another voice, her father's, firm, final. "It's not a request, Avery." Malik remembered that night too well. He remembered being escorted out, badge confiscated, phone wiped, contract terminated, warned to cut contact immediately. "You're too close," they told him. "You can't protect her if you care about her," they said. But he did care, more than he ever admitted. On the stage, Avery's knees buckled. Malik caught her again, steadying her with both hands, as the ballroom erupted into chaos. Victor Langston slammed his palm on the edge of a table. "This is unacceptable. Shut it down," he barked at the production crew. But it was too late. The footage had already done its damage. Investors stared at Victor with suspicion. Reporters whispered frantically, sensing a bigger story. Cameras zoomed in on Avery, a powerful CEO suddenly human, shaking, exposed. And Malik, he didn't hide. He stood tall, badge still visible on his chest, revealed to the world as the one thing Avery never expected him to be, the man her father hired to protect her, and the man she unknowingly pushed away. Avery grabbed his arm. Her voice was barely a breath. "Why didn't you tell me?" Malik didn't answer, not because he didn't want to, but because the screen behind them abruptly changed again. A new video. This one not from 8 years ago. This one from last week. A shadowed figure placing an envelope into a mailbox. Harper's mailbox. Avery's eyes widened. Harper's name flickered on the screen. Caldwell Innovations logo stamped on the envelope. The room exploded with noise. Reporters shouting, security panicking, investors arguing. But Avery didn't hear any of them. Her eyes were locked on Malik. "Malik, what does this have to do with your daughter?" Malik's throat tightened. He didn't know. He didn't understand. He didn't have answers. But the fear in Avery's voice was real for the first time that night. And for a brief second, the world saw the truth between them that they had tried to bury. They weren't strangers. They were unfinished. The screen cut to black. The lights surged too bright. Security began closing in. And then, the ballroom dissolved into chaos, a hive of voices speaking over one another as security fought to regain control. Reporters shouted questions. Investors argued in tight circles. Camera flashes strobed like lightning. But Avery didn't hear any of it. Not the shouting. Not the panic. Not the room spiraling out of control. All she saw was the frozen image on the massive screen. Harper's name. Her mailbox. Someone recording her child from the shadows. Someone who knew exactly where Malik lived. Someone who wanted Avery to see it. Malik moved instinctively, stepping in front of her as security closed in. He didn't know who was behind the video, but he knew predators when he saw them. He'd spent years watching for men like that. "Malik," Avery whispered, breath shallow. "Who sent that to you?" "I don't know," he said. "But somebody wants us both in the same room at the same time. Somebody planned every second of this." Before she could answer, a voice boomed through the speaker system, cutting through the panic like a blade. Victor Langston. He stepped onto the stage, arms raised for silence he had no right to demand. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "my deepest apologies for these unauthorized interruptions. Rest assured, Caldwell Innovations is in full control. The room quieted, but not because anyone believed him. They were watching him, studying him, waiting. Victor turned to Avery with a soft, mocking smile. Such unfortunate timing, Avery. So many personal revelations during a professional event. Avery's spine stiffened. Victor continued, voice oily smooth. But since the world is watching, perhaps you'd like to address this security officer from your past, or the child linked to your company name? The words hit like a slap. Avery stepped forward, fury rising beneath her skin. You have no right. Oh, but I do, Victor said, lowering his voice so only she and Malik could hear. In fact, I have every right. He tapped his tablet. A new image flickered onto the screens. Not a video this time. Documents, financial charts, account transfers, internal reports, all manipulated, all designed to point to one culprit. Avery Caldwell. Gasps, whispers, buzzing fear. Victor spread his arms. These documents show inconsistencies under Avery's leadership. Misused funds, unauthorized decisions, emotional entanglements that clouded judgment. He tilted his head toward Malik. And now a former employee mysteriously tied to her resurfaces, caught on camera, at the precise moment our company faces scrutiny. Malik stepped forward, anger flaring in his eyes. Don't twist this, he growled. Victor smiled, amused. Twist? I'm simply showing the public the truth. Avery's hands trembled, not in fear, in rage. But before she could speak, Lydia, her assistant, appeared beside the stage, breathless, holding a small tablet. Avery, she whispered urgently, you need to see this. Avery took the device. The screen displayed an email thread. The one she wasn't supposed to see. Documents forged, transfers edited, internal messages fabricated, and at the top of the chain, sent by Victor Langston. Avery felt the air leave her lungs. It wasn't a scandal. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't a coincidence. It was an orchestrated attack. And then Lydia said something that snapped the room into a sharper focus. There's more. The person stalking that little girl. It wasn't some random creep. Avery's eyes lifted. It was someone paid through a shell company tied to Victor's personal account. Malik stepped closer. What did you say? Lydia swallowed. Harper wasn't watched for leverage against you. Avery wasn't the only target. The plan was to tie Malik to Avery, spin it into negligence, and force her out as unfit to lead. Avery's stomach knotted. Victor's voice sliced through the tension. That's quite enough of the theatrics. Avery rounded on him. You did this. You set everything up. You dragged an innocent child into this. Victor didn't flinch. It's business, Avery. You were never meant to run this empire. Your father knew it. And now the world will too. The room erupted again. Security tried to regroup. Event coordinators panicked. Investors whispered nervously. Through it all, Avery stood tall, her expression flattening into something cold, sharp, unforgiving. But Malik? He wasn't looking at Victor. He was staring at the screen still showing Harper's mailbox. His daughter's name. Broadcast to an entire ballroom. Someone had invaded her world, followed her, recorded her, and used her as bait. Avery turned to him, really turned to him, for the first time that night. I'm so sorry, she whispered. But Malik wasn't listening. His jaw clenched, his fists curled, his voice dropped to a low, deadly tone. Whoever came near my child is going to regret it. Victor opened his mouth to respond, and the lights suddenly cut out. Screams, shouts, total blackout. A cold voice echoed through the dark, amplified through the speakers. Time's up! Darkness swallowed the ballroom in one brutal second. Someone screamed. A chair scraped across the marble. A glass shattered. Security yelled over each other, trying to restore order. Malik didn't wait for the lights to come back. He grabbed Avery's wrist and pulled her toward the side exit. Fast, decisive. The way a man moves when fear stops being fear and becomes instinct. She didn't resist. The crowd surged behind them, people pushing, tripping, shouting as emergency lights flickered on and off like a dying heartbeat. Avery stumbled in her heels, nearly falling on the steps leading backstage, but Malik steadied her without breaking stride. They burst through the loading hall and into the cold night air of the underground parking garage. Dim, echoing, concrete swallowing every sound. A security alarm wailed in the distance, their breaths clouded in front of them. Avery pressed her back against a pillar, fingers trembling against the rough cement. "Malik, what is happening?" she whispered. He didn't answer immediately. He scanned the shadows, corners, blind spots, the ramp leading up to street level. Every instinct in him screamed that someone was lurking, someone who wanted them isolated. "Stay behind me," he said. She took a shaky breath. "I didn't know," she whispered suddenly. Her voice was soft, splintered, nothing like the CEO the world feared. Malik turned, eyes narrowing. "Didn't know what?" A tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. "That someone was watching your daughter. That she was dragged into this. That Victor—" She swallowed hard. "I had no idea, Malik. I swear it." He looked at her, really looked at her. 8 years of silence. 8 years of bitterness. 8 years of believing she left because she didn't care. All of it trembled under that one truth. But he stepped back, jaw tight. "Why was I even called here tonight?" he asked. "What did you need from me?" Avery shook her head. "I didn't call you." Silence. Cold, heavy silence that echoed through the vast parking garage. Malik's pulse shifted, his hands curled into fists. "Then who sent that letter?" he demanded. Avery blinked hard. "What letter?" He pulled the crumpled page from his pocket and tossed it onto the hood of the nearest car. She grabbed it, eyes racing across the words, her face drained of color. I've never seen this," she whispered. "This isn't from my staff. This isn't our letterhead. This isn't—" A cold realization locked into place between them. Someone had forged the Caldwell Innovation summons. Someone wanted Malik here. Someone wanted them together. Someone wanted Harper exposed. Avery pressed a hand to her forehead, struggling to steady her breath. "Malik, there's something you need to know." He waited. She wiped a tear from her cheek, shoulders trembling. "The day I left you, I didn't leave because I wanted to." Her voice cracked. "I left because my father found out about us." Malik's jaw clenched. "And he said you were in danger," she whispered. "Someone from your past, someone dangerous, was closing in. My father forced me to cut ties. He pulled your file. He reassigned you. He erased your badge. He said it was the only way to protect you." Malik froze. A memory slammed into him. A man in a dark coat. A warning growled through gritted teeth. A promise to come back for him. The ghost from Chapter 3. The shadow that had watched Avery drive away all those years ago. Malik's breath hitched. "You knew," he whispered. "You knew someone was after me, and you didn't tell me?" Avery shook her head violently. "I wasn't allowed. He wouldn't let me see you. He said that if you knew the truth, you'd run straight into danger." Malik stepped back, heartbeat pounding. "And now, all these years later, someone's gone after my daughter instead?" Avery's tears fell faster. "I never meant for any of this to touch her. I never meant—" A sudden clang echoed across the garage, metal hitting concrete. Malik pushed Avery behind him, eyes scanning the shadows again. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from the ramp. "You need to go," he whispered. "I'm not leaving you," she shot back. "Go, Avery." "Malik, listen to me." The footsteps grew louder, closer. Malik's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "If this is the man from my past, he isn't here for you. He's here for payback. For me." Avery's grip tightened on his arm. "It's not just your past anymore," she said. Her voice was shaking, but steady enough to sting. "It's mine too!" Another clang, a figure slipping between cars, a shadow breaking from the far corner. Malik stepped forward. Avery reached for his jacket, but it was too late. A voice echoed from the darkness. "Lawson, long time." The voice slithered out of the shadows like something venomous. Low, gravelly, too familiar. Malik's entire body went rigid. Avery felt the shift before she saw the man. The way Malik's muscles tightened, the way his stance dropped ever so slightly, the way his breath steadied like a man preparing for impact. Then a figure stepped into the dim blue light of the parking garage. Tall, broad, leather jacket, heavy boots, a scar dragging across his left cheek like a signature. Darius Knox, the ghost Malik never outran. Avery sucked in a sharp breath, instinctively reaching for Malik's arm. Darius smiled, a cold stretch of teeth that held no warmth. "You've been hard to find," he said, his voice bouncing off the concrete pillars. "But your daughter? She's got habits, predictable ones." Avery's heart lurched. Cold panic twisted her stomach. "Harper," she whispered. Malik stepped forward sharply. "You stay the hell away from my kid." Darius chuckled. "Relax. I didn't touch her. I just needed you two in the same place, tonight." Avery's voice cracked. "Why?" Darius tilted his head, amused. "Because the man who paid me wanted a show." Malik stiffened. "Victor." Darius clapped slowly, mock applause echoing. "Smart boy, still sharp. Shame your life fell apart." Avery stepped in front of Malik without thinking. "You worked for Victor?"
"You stalked a child, my employee's child, for a corporate takeover?" Darius shrugged. "I stalk whoever pays me. Victor's pockets are deep, and he didn't just want you out, sweetheart." His eyes flicked to Malik. He wanted Lawson broken. Malik's fists clenched so tight his knuckles cracked. Avery looked between the two men, confusion flooding her. "Why you?" she whispered to Malik. "What did Victor have against you?" Darius smirked. "You really don't know, do you?" Her pulse stuttered. "Know what?" Darius took one slow step closer, eyes locked on Avery now. 8 years ago, your father pulled this boy out of your life because of me. I threatened him. He panicked. He stripped Malik of his badge and sent him running." Avery shook her head. No. My father said it was to protect Malik." Darius laughed, a deep, ugly sound. "Protect him?" "He didn't give a damn about him. He wanted to protect you because he knew something you didn't." Avery swallowed. "What are you talking about?" Darius's smile widened. "The reason Victor wants Malik ruined is because Malik is the last piece of leverage your father kept hidden." Avery went still. Malik didn't move. Darius delivered the blow slowly, savoring it. "You were never supposed to find out that Malik Lawson was listed in your father's files as your emergency asset. Your fallback." Avery blinked. "What?" Malik's jaw tightened. "What did you just say?" Darius stepped into the light. "Your father didn't pull Malik from your life because he cared about some romance. He pulled him because Malik was being groomed as a private protector, your personal detail, something only CEO's heirs get." Avery's throat closed. "No. He couldn't." Darius cut her off. "Sweetheart, your father didn't want you falling in love with Malik." He smirked. "He wanted you to own him." The words slammed into the air with brutal force. Avery staggered back, shaking her head. Malik didn't blink. "That's a lie," he snarled. "Is it?" Darius said softly. "Why do you think your badge was the only one signed personally by her father? Why do you think you were assigned to her as a special case? Why do you think he kept tabs on you even after the reassignment?" Avery's breathing fractured. Malik's world tilted. 8 years of confusion. 8 years of silence. 8 years of believing she abandoned him. 8 years of thinking her father hated him. But the truth was worse. Her father had been playing both of them. Darius took one more step.
lowering his voice. Victor got those files when he took over this year. He knows Malik's name was tied to Avery's future, and if Malik stays in the picture, he pointed to Avery, then to Malik. She stays in power. If he destroys Malik, he destroys her. Avery pressed her hand to her chest, breath catching. No, my father wouldn't. He did, Darius said. And Victor's continuing the game. Malik looked at Avery. Avery looked at him. An entire hidden world. One they didn't choose. One they didn't understand. One that destroyed them. Cracked open between them. And then, from behind a concrete pillar, a second figure stepped out. This time smaller. Quieter. Both hands holding onto a small, crumpled envelope. Harper. Her eyes wide. Her voice barely a whisper. Daddy. He said you'd want this. Malik's heart dropped into his stomach. Avery froze. Her lips parted. Her knees nearly buckled. Because the envelope wasn't just addressed to Malik. It was addressed to Avery Caldwell. In handwriting Malik recognized instantly. His own. 8 years old. Never delivered. Sealed. Darius chuckled behind them. Looks like story time isn't done yet. For a long moment, nobody moved. The garage felt too quiet, too still, as Harper's small hands clutched that worn envelope like it was alive. Malik's breath caught in his chest. Every part of him wanted to run to her, grab her, shield her from everything in front of them. But he couldn't move. Not with Avery trembling beside him. Not with Darius watching them like a man who enjoyed breaking people open. Avery looked at Harper with wide, shattered eyes, as if she wasn't sure she was allowed to speak to the little girl standing 10 feet away. Harper stepped forward again, voice tiny. Daddy, this was in my backpack. The man put it there. Avery flinched. Malik swallowed hard, forcing himself to regain control. Come here, baby, he said softly. Harper darted straight to him, clinging to his leg. He put a hand on her head, gentle, protective, grounding himself through her warmth. Darius took a casual step forward. Relax. She was never my target. She's just leverage. Victor wanted her scared enough to pull you both out of the shadows. Avery's voice finally broke free, thin and desperate. Why give her that letter? Why now? Darius smirked. Because what's inside that envelope is the one thing Victor didn't want Avery to see. Avery's breath caught. Malik's grip tightened around Harper. Darius tapped the side of his head. Your father hid a lot. But the boy wasn't as dumb as he looked back then. He left a piece of the truth behind. Avery stared at the envelope. Her throat bobbed. Her hands shook uncontrollably. Malik, what is that? She whispered. He couldn't look at her. It's nothing. Something from the past. It doesn't matter. It matters if Victor wants it destroyed, she shot back, voice cracking. Before Malik could answer, the rising wail of police sirens echoed down the ramp. But it wasn't the police. It was the building's private security fleet. The ones Victor controlled. Darius glanced over his shoulder. Well, looks like the boss wants his toys back. Avery's heart slammed against her ribs. Malik, we have to go. Now. He grabbed Harper's hand. Avery ran beside them. But before they reached the exit to the stairs, a line of black uniformed security guards appeared at the top of the ramp, blocking the way out. Victor stepped into view behind them, calm, composed, triumphant. Well, he said, adjusting his cufflinks, isn't this convenient, all three of you in one place? Avery stiffened. Victor, if you come any closer. Or what? He smiled. You have no evidence, no allies, no control. Your assets are frozen. Your company is already voting you out. Avery's breath hitched. Malik stepped in front of her automatically. Instinct, not choice. Victor tilted his head. And you, he said to Malik, were never supposed to show your face tonight. But since you did, I'm afraid you forced my hand. He lifted a hand. Security moved. Avery's heart dropped into her stomach. "Stop!" she screamed. But Victor didn't stop. He pointed at Malik. "Arrest him!" The order echoed through the garage like a death sentence. Avery lunged forward. "You have no right!" "Oh, but I do," Victor said smoothly. "According to our internal files, this man is tied to years of undisclosed company activity. He infiltrated tonight's event illegally. He caused a security breach. And funniest of all," he smirked, "he still has an inactive corporate badge signed under your family's authority." Avery froze. Victor continued, voice dripping with satisfaction. "He's the perfect scapegoat." Two guards grabbed Malik by the arms. Harper screamed. Avery reached for him. "No! Victor, this is wrong! He didn't do anything! He didn't—" Victor leaned close to her ear. "You want your company back?" he whispered. "Let him go. Throw him to the wolves. Save yourself." Avery's breath shattered. Tears spilled. Her entire world narrowed to three things: Malik being held down, Harper crying, the envelope crumpling at Malik's feet, the letter he wrote 8 years ago, the letter she never received, the letter Victor tried to erase. One guard reached for Malik's wrists, but Avery lunged between them, shoving the guard with a burst of strength she didn't know she had. "Back off him!" she yelled, voice raw. Whispers rippled among the guards. Victor's face twisted in anger. "Avery, step aside." She didn't. She stood in front of Malik, her breathing uneven, her hands shaking, her heart racing. "No more lies," she said softly. "No more control. Not from my father. Not from you." Victor's eyes darkened. "You're making a mistake." Avery lifted the envelope from the ground with trembling fingers. "Maybe," she whispered. "But I'm tired of living in your mistakes." Security stepped closer. Malik pulled Harper tight against his side, and then, from the top of the ramp, a thunderous voice roared, "Nobody is arresting anyone!" Everyone's head snapped up. A new figure appeared. Not security, not police. Someone with the authority to stop everything. Someone who wasn't supposed to be alive, according to what Avery believed. The voice thundered through the garage like a shockwave. Every guard froze. Victor paled. Avery's knees nearly gave out. Out of the shadows stepped a man Avery had buried in memories and grief. A man she thought was gone forever. Thomas Caldwell. Her father. Alive. Breathing. Older. Harder. But unmistakably him. Avery's breath shattered in her chest. "Dad?" she whispered, voice trembling. Thomas didn't look at her right away. His gaze locked on Victor with the cold, razor-sharp focus of a man who'd built empires and buried enemies. "Stand down," he ordered the guards. They obeyed instantly. No hesitation. No confusion. Victor stumbled back, eyes wide. "Thomas, this isn't possible. You're dead?" Thomas finished. A bitter smile twisted across his face. "I let you believe that. It showed me who the snakes were." Victor backed up another step. Thomas moved forward, every step a warning. "You forged documents. You stole from my company. You weaponized my daughter's past and a child, for leverage." His voice dropped lower. "And worst of all, you touched my security files." Victor sputtered. She was weak. She was leading the company into ruin. "No," Thomas snapped. "You were." Two guards stepped behind Victor. He looked from one to the other, panic rising. "You can't do this! Thomas, listen!" Thomas lifted a hand. "Take him." Victor's protests echoed uselessly as the guards dragged him toward the elevator. Kicking, yelling, trying to cling to the illusion of power he'd never actually had. When he disappeared, the garage fell quiet. Avery stared at her father, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You faked your death," she whispered. "You lied to me. You let me think—" Thomas finally looked at her, really looked. "Everything I did," he said softly, "I did to protect you." Avery shook her head. "No, you didn't protect me. You isolated me. You controlled me. You destroyed the only person who ever cared about me." Her voice cracked. "And you didn't even let me choose." Thomas's gaze flicked to Malik. "You were never meant to be involved," he said. "You were assigned to protect her, nothing more." Malik stepped forward, Harper still clinging to his hand. "I cared about her," he said quietly. "I cared long before I knew anything about your plans." Avery turned to Malik, tears bright in her eyes. For once, her father had no words. She took the envelope from her hand, the one Darius had planted in Harper's backpack, the one Malik had written 8 years ago. Malik swallowed hard. "Avery, you don't have to open that." But she did. Her fingers tore the flap. She pulled out the single page inside, yellowed at the edges, creased from years of hiding. Her eyes scanned the handwriting. Malik's voice from 8 years ago rose into the cold garage like a ghost being set free. "I know I'm not supposed to see you anymore, but I need you to know something before I disappear. I didn't walk away. I was pushed, and if I ever get to stand near you again, I hope you don't look at me like I betrayed you. Because I didn't. I loved you. More than I should have." The page slipped from her fingers, stumbled, fell. She covered her mouth with her hand, shoulders shaking. Malik looked away. Not because he wanted to, but because he didn't know how to stand there exposed like that. Then Avery stepped toward him, slowly, delicately, like she was afraid the moment would crumble if she moved too fast. When she reached him, she didn't speak. She placed her hand over his heart. He looked at her, really looked, and saw everything she'd carried alone. The heartbreak, the guilt, the longing, the 8 years of love buried under silence and lies. "Avery," he whispered, but she shook her head. "No more running," she breathed. "No more secrets. No more losing each other because of someone else's fear." She looked down at Harper, who wiped her eyes with her sleeve. Avery crouched and met her gaze. "Hi, sweetheart," she said softly. "I'm Avery." Harper sniffed. "You're the lady Daddy talks about when he thinks I'm asleep." Malik closed his eyes. Avery's breath hitched. She gently tucked one of Harper's braids behind her ear. "Do you mind if I stay around for a while?" she asked. Harper nodded fast. "You can stay forever." Avery laughed through tears, a sound Malik hadn't heard in 8 years. Thomas watched, silent, knowing this was no longer his world to control. Avery stood again and reached for Malik's hand. He didn't pull away. The garage was quiet now, the kind of quiet that comes after storms, after betrayals, after truths finally break through all the lies. "You saved me tonight," she whispered. He shook his head. "No, you saved yourself." She squeezed his hand. "Maybe we saved each other." They walked toward the exit, Malik holding Harper's hand, Avery walking beside them, no longer a CEO running from scandal, but a woman stepping back into a life she'd once been torn away from. As they reached the open air, Avery looked back one last time. The garage was empty. Victor was gone. Darius had vanished. Her father stood alone in the shadows, older, quieter, no longer a king, just a man who'd lost the right to make decisions for his daughter. She turned away, and the night swallowed the past. Malik, Avery, and Harper walked into the cold Chicago air together, not knowing what tomorrow held, not knowing how complicated their lives were about to become, not knowing that this night would be talked about for years as the moment everything changed. But for now, they walked forward, together,